Out of the thousands of anomalies in the Wiki, SCP-053's abilities are among the most surprising. The last thing one would expect from a little girl is to calm down one of the most aggressive monsters in the Foundation, SCP-682. But why didn't the hard-to-destroy reptile attack 053, given its absolute hatred towards humanity? In this SCP Exploration episode, we try to answer this question. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel with notifications on so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And we will be answering many more interesting SCP related questions like this one in the future. The first possible reason why this happened is rather obvious. As we know, SCP-053 causes anyone that approaches it to become paranoid and homicidal. As a result, this individual will attempt to kill the girl, but will suffer a massive heart attack and die instantly. And if we think about the SCP-682 experiment, we notice how everything went the other way round. The lizard didn't become aggressive after meeting 053, as it is aggressive at default, and instead, after meeting the girl, it became peaceful. So the obvious reason is SCP-682's adaptation capabilities. The lizard realized that attacking the girl would be deadly, so instead, it decided to remain calm. However, there are a few counter-arguments. The first reason why this isn't the whole picture is the fact that SCP-682 must have adapted to 053's effects instantly, which isn't how the reptile's adaptation usually works. To clarify, during a run-of-the-mill SCP-682 termination attempt, the method or SCP that is used usually begins damaging the reptile at first, but then 682 begins adapting and the method loses effectiveness. To the contrary, when exposed to SCP-053, the lizard became calm instantly and didn't attack the girl at all, which, as we said, isn't how tests with SCP-682 usually start. Furthermore, even if the outcome of this test was due to 682's adaptation alone, then this still doesn't explain why the reptile allowed to be played around with in such a cute manner. If 682 adapted, then it would only abstain from attacking 053, but it would still experience the same amount of hatred towards the little girl as it feels towards all of humanity. To the contrary, SCP-682's behavior seems to imply some sort of sympathy and emotional attachment to the girl, which is definitely out of tone with its usual hatred. So to sum things up, even though SCP-682's adaptation is by far its most important ability, and more than likely played a role in this experiment, these two counter-arguments alone imply that there is more to this experiment than just adaptation. So we will have to go deeper and look for different reasons. If we assume that SCP-682 felt sympathy towards 053, which certainly sounds reasonable, considering the fact that the lizard allowed the girl to draw with crayons on its body, then we have to ask ourselves, why was SCP-682 sympathetic towards 053? Well, to begin with, the hard-to-destroy reptile has expressed hatred towards all life forms, including SCPs, claiming they are all disgusting. However, it was friendly towards SCP-079. So what is there in common between SCP-079 and 053? Well, as we know, SCP-079 despises humanity and is very hateful. SCP-053 hasn't stated anything that would imply hate towards life, but her abilities certainly speak otherwise. The little girl turns ordinary people into monsters, killing them in the process. Perhaps SCP-682 admires 053's abilities and respects the fact that the little girl also wants to kill as many people as possible. However, the fact that SCP-682 hates all life forms contradicts with SCP-053's appearance, that of an innocent little girl. Furthermore, the fact that SCP-079 is an artificial intelligence, and as such isn't a living being, further consolidates the fact that on paper, 682 should only be able to feel sympathy towards non-living objects. And if we rely on the 079 experiment and assume that 682 must hate all life, with no exceptions, then 053 must adhere to this rule as well. But then what does this mean about SCP-053? How can it look like a little girl and be non-living at the same time? Luckily, we discover an SCP tale that offers an interesting take on the 682 and 053 relationship that may be the answer. The Pale Horse is an SCP tale that shows a deeper connection between SCP-682 and 053. The tale begins with the lizard's containment, but shortly afterwards, 682 escapes and Dr. Clef uses some sort of special weapon on the reptile, which as expected fails to eliminate the lizard. Instead, this merely changes 682's appearance, and the anomaly is now covered in feathers and quills. This makes SCP-682 appear less like a lizard and more like a lion, complete with a feathery mane. SCP-682 then approaches Clef and the two begin to talk. The reptile claims it didn't kill Clef because of his powerful reality-bending capabilities and states that now, back in its glorified form, it can see Clef for who he really is. And when asked what this glorified form really means, 682 says that it is a part of a group and calls the other members of this group Conquest, War and Famine. Clef figures out that this makes SCP-682 a part of the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And when asked if it is the 4th member, Death, 682 says that instead, it is her steed. Shortly afterwards, SCP-053 breaches containment and meets 682. The girl kisses the reptile, climbs onto its back, and the two ride away. So we see how this SCP tale would explain why 682 was friendly towards 053. If the girl really is Death, or at least a manifestation of it, then the lizard wouldn't violate its rule of hating all life by being friendly towards the girl. Instead, SCP-682 would admire 053 and would feel calm and happy in the presence of something that is a manifestation of what the lizard wants to achieve in life. To clarify, we don't actually believe that 682 used to be 053's steed, as the hard-to-destroy reptile would certainly react in a much more joyful way if it was, but we most definitely agree that the girl must be some sort of manifestation of Death. So to sum things up, SCP-053's ill intent matches that of 682, which the lizard respects. But the reptile can't be friendly towards a living creature, as it hates all life, which leaves only one possibility, that SCP-053 is a manifestation of Death, something that is also implied in the tale The Pale Horse. So we see that SCP-053 gives us a glimpse at how 682 would act if it were with its own kind and in its own world. SCP-682's real behavior is that of a bored, lazy housecat that simply finds our world's creatures a bit disgusting and wants to eliminate us as a result. And when it comes to SCP-053, we once again see how deceiving looks in the SCP Foundation can be, as an innocent-looking little girl turns out to be a manifestation of Death. This concludes our Why Didn't SCP-682 Attack SCP-053 video. So do you agree? Is the girl a manifestation of Death, or does the lizard simply admire her properties? Let us know in the comments below. Please leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content, as we will be answering many more interesting SCP related questions like this one in the future. And as always, we'll see you in the next video.